welcome to Horror Month Part 1. I realise I'm kind of neglecting my the videos on my channel lately. I've been doing the podcast and writing reviews on Letterboxd and stuff, so I figured I would make a video about the horror films I'm watching this month. Decided, me and Connie, my fiance, decided we're going to watch horror films this month, which I don't think we've ever done before actually. Last year I wanted to do like a month-long video series, so I did Michael Keaton month, which was, you know, can be the complete opposite from a horror month, but I think that's why I didn't do too well as well in terms of views at the time. And so, in fact, I said a couple of videos ago that I was going to be doing a November series to kind of, you know, do it just after the Halloween part, and you know, Halloween, Christmas, December, then you got November in the middle, and not much is really going on, so I thought November would be a better month to do a big month-long series this year, but I've actually decided now to cancel that, and I'll make a video explaining why and explaining what it was going to be, and why I won't be doing it, and what it would have been. I think I just repeated myself. That's ridiculous. Okay, let's get on with the video. But yeah, watching horror films, and so every week or so I'll check in with a video just to talk to you guys about what horror films I've been watching. But of course, if you follow me, or if you add me on Facebook, facebook.com/RazorwireReviews, then you'll know what films I've been watching, because I'm kind of updating on Facebook as I go along, which has been pretty cool, pretty fun. Last night I asked what people's thoughts were on a certain film, and I got a bunch of feedback, which is great, just to see what other people thought about this film I was watching. So that was really cool, and I'm enjoying that side of doing the horror month and interacting with people on Facebook. So I feel like I should make a video about it. So this will be part 1. Maybe it'll be 3 or 4 parts throughout the month. I don't know. We're like, what, October 6th today? So we've watched 5 films so far. I've watched a few more on my own. So the first film kicked off with on the 1st of October was Sinister. Ethan Hawke, 2012 film. I didn't know it was a supernatural film. I'm going to talk about this on my podcast. If you already listened to that, I apologise. But yeah, I didn't know it was a supernatural film before I started watching it, and halfway through the film, that's when the supernatural element kicks in, and I feel like that's when it lost its edge for me. Like, I loved the opening. The first half of the film was brilliant. Ethan Hawke is like a true crime writer who moves into this new house in a new town where a murder took place recently, and he's there to write a book about it, and the police don't like him because he gives the police a bad name in his true crime books. But really he's kind of hanging on to the last threads of his career as a true crime novelist, and, well, not novelist because he writes about the true stories, but writer, author, and he hasn't had a big hit in about 10 years, and he really needs one. And little do his family know that this time they haven't just moved into the same town, they've moved into the exact house where the crime scene took place, out in the backyard, and the film opens with a great shot of that, the murder in question, really creepy. And the hook for this film is 8mm home movies. He finds a box of them in the attic of this house, and he starts playing them, and it features the murder, but also like voyeuristic footage of the family before they were murdered by whoever killed them. And then he finds all these other movies from like years before, and it kind of strings along to the point where he's looking at one person murdering families over like decades. That to me was terrifying, and the way you see the home movies was great. But then once you find out that it's kind of a supernatural being behind it, that's when I kind of, you know, it was still a really good film, really well made. Ethan Hawke was fantastic in it, and you know, the ending I thought was good and different, but overall I just felt like it lost its edge. For me, it was much more scary if it had been kind of a real person who was behind it. Not I'm saying that it wasn't a real person, but I'm saying, like, you know, it wasn't entirely true to, you know, physics and real life. It was, you know, again, more supernatural element, but you know, it was still good and enjoyable for what it was. I just wish it had delivered more, but that's just my tastes in terms of films. That's the other thing, I'm not really a huge horror fan. It's probably my least favourite genre if you look at like the broad genres, like, you know, horror and, you know, western, drama, romance, sci-fi, fantasy. Not when you go into like subgenres, you know. There's plenty of subgenres I could say I really don't like over horror, but if you're going just the broad, you know, genres, horror is the one that I go to the least, but I still do really enjoy good ones. 2nd of October, the second one we watched was Child's Play, the original Chucky movie. We watched the last one last year, I think, Curse of Chucky. Just randomly watched it, and it came out last year as well, and it was kind of like a straight to, not video, but straight to download, straight to Blu-ray, straight to DVD, I think is the most common term they call it now. Straight to DVD movie sequel. The first straight to DVD film in the series, but it was a really good one, and apparently it was, you know, said, oh yeah, it's going to return to its roots of being more serious in tone. We really enjoyed it, and I wanted to watch the first one, and this is a film series that has kind of been in my consciousness for a long time as a film lover. I used to remember going to both video stores in my hometown, and they'd have like the Chucky box set, you know, not the box set, the Chucky boxes of the VHS tapes, and just the creepy artwork with that grinning doll, and just, you know, really intrigued me, scared me, and excited me. But I never did get to see them. In reading through all the plots, and again I went through this on my podcast last week, but in going through all the plots of the film, just skimming through them after we watched the first Child's Play, just to see what the other films were about. I have seen most of the third one, but that's about it. So the first film I absolutely loved. I thought it was brilliant. It was really well done, and again, for the first half of the film it could almost be completely real and true to life, and you could almost argue that Andy, the young boy in it, is just going crazy, and you know, his doll isn't really talking to him, but he's kind of imagining it and stuff. But then there comes a turning point where it's like, no, the doll is moving, and you know, has the soul of a serial killer inside him, played by Brad Dourif, who at the beginning of the film is in a toy store and gets killed, but transfers his soul using this kind of incantation and spell into this good guy doll. And so the doll is then bought from like a back alley, you know, homeless person just flogging it. Found it in the store after the crime went down, the murder. Well, not the murder, but the, I guess, I don't know, if police kill someone, is it called a murder? I don't know, it's a random thing you can think about, but probably not. Anyway, so you know, some homeless guy picked up the Chucky doll, oh no, the good guy doll, and it had the soul inside it. He put it back in a box, and then this mother bought it, you know, for cheap round the back because she didn't have the money to buy it for her son. So she gets it for him for his birthday. He's over the moon, but then of course the doll starts talking to him and telling him to do things, and all these things start happening. Bodies start piling up. Not really, but you know, deaths do occur, and so you know, obviously the police are like looking at this kid Andy and saying, obviously he's crazy. This doll isn't, you know, going around killing people or anything like that. And I forget the guy's name. Brad Dourif's character, the serial killer whose soul is inside the doll, his nickname was Chucky. So the doll, you know, he tells Andy his name's Chucky, and you know, and then it goes on where like the mother doesn't believe him, obviously, and there's like the police officer who doesn't believe him, and then at one point Chucky does reveal himself to the mother, and that's when it gets more interesting, because then the mother believes her son and has to kind of fight for, you know, what he's saying to the police, and they don't believe her, and then just keeps going. But it's really well done, and for the first half of the film you're really kind of wondering, like, there's an aura around the Chucky doll, and then when you finally see him talk as Chucky and not as the good guy doll, just the mechanics inside him, it's really cool. Like, there's some great animatronic stuff on the face. Connie even said that she was really impressed when he started moving and talking, and it's just really well done. And you know, there's a bit of humour in there for sure. It's not a completely serious horror film. It's not really a scary one either, but there's some creepy moments to it. I kind of liken it to like a little dog, like a little tiny dog just running at you, trying to snap at your heels. Like, you know, there's something a little, you know, it's a bit too quick for you, but you know, at the same time it's just very, yeah, creepy, I guess. But overall, a good film, and the whole ending where they're kind of fighting Chucky at the end, which is really fun, and just a great finale to the film. So that was Child's Play. And then the third day, October 3rd, we watched Cloverfield, which I wasn't even sure was a horror. You know, I'd always heard about it when it came out, that it was supposed to be surprisingly good, but I wasn't really interested. Found footage film, group of friends having a party in New York City, and this huge monster just runs on a rampage through Manhattan. And it really starts off slow. You're in this party and you're there for like 20 minutes, just like observing the kind of relationship drama going on. And I got to the point where I was thinking, hang on, this is going on a bit too long, and then the monster stuff started happening. So I thought it was kind of perfect, because throughout the film I did actually care about the characters that we were following through this whole big, you know, running away from this monster in the city part of the film, because I knew what the main character's kind of conflict was he had with this girl who he was in love with, and you know, they weren't really together, but they were, you know, there was just, I like that part of it. And we start the film off with kind of him and her filming each other, just like, you know, personal memories and stuff that they had. And then throughout the film, when things get really crazy and everyone's in distress, like, he'll turn the camera off, and then we'll see a tiny snippet of them in like happier times. So it's like a cool juxtaposition of like the happiness and then the, you know, the horrible stuff. And instead of just leaving the city, the main character decides he's going to go back and help this girl who he's in love with, and that's kind of the main part of the film, him trying to get back to this place, which is where the monster's running through. And the found footage stuff is really done well. I love the director, Matt Reeves. He did the American remake Let Me In, which I really liked, and of course Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, which is one of my favourite films ever, surprisingly enough, even though it only just came out a few months ago. But in love with that film, so I was looking forward to seeing it, knowing that he directed it. And I like the fact that most of the film is filmed from the perspective of this kind of I guess you could almost call him like a jock kind of character, not in school, but you know, that kind of a person, just a kind of like a bit of a jerk, you know, like a hey man, like that kind of a character. He was given the camera to film during the party, and then he just comes along for the ride and he's filming everything. And there's bits where, you know, like the main character, this guy is kind of like distressed and he's like crying and stuff, and this guy's just filming him. Ordinarily, I'd be thinking in my head, hang on a minute, why is this person filming his friend crying? But then you realise there's this kind of jerky character who kind of will just shove a camera in someone's face and have no tact whatsoever, so it was realistic from that point. The CGI was pretty good at times. Obviously being found footage, it helped because you don't really see much. I didn't like it when we saw too much of the monster at the end. I felt like it was just kind of there to kind of say, okay audience, here's a good look at the monster in case you were wondering, and it just took away a little bit for me. And there's kind of a major plot hole for me that kind of just scuppered my whole enjoyment of it, basically. It was the beginning of the film, it's like, you know, government property, you know, and this is kind of the footage they found, and it says, you know, this was digital SD card found in area US 477, formerly known as Central Park. So you know that the film ends in Central Park, and that's where they find the camera. Only the camera is filming on a tape. And there's even a point where the character says, you're not using a new tape, right? You're not taping over the other stuff. And then again, as I said, he stops the camera and we see stuff that's been taped over, the memories that have been taped over, and at the very end, you know, you got these two characters, and then it cuts to like the end of the tape where again they're having a nice day together, and it's just kind of a nice juxtaposition to end the film. But it was all filmed on a tape, and I just felt like, but it said at the beginning a digital SD card, and you can't tape over digital files. It just bugged me from that point, just why even put the little title card saying digital SD card, just put tape, you know, mini DV tape, whatever you want to put. And I spoke to my friend about it, Alex, and he's like, oh well, maybe, you know, the government picked it up and then they transferred it from the tape onto a digital SD card and then that's the source. And I'm like, well yeah, that's possible, but when you have to start thinking about it and start making up an excuse for that in the film, then it kind of, you shouldn't have to do that. You shouldn't have to make up an excuse for a plot point after you've watched the film, really, I don't think. But didn't ruin it, it just kind of, oh, that was a bit of a shame. And a lot of unrealistic stuff started happening towards the end of the film. Overall, I did really enjoy it. I'd definitely watch it again. You know, a lot of it was very good, but just little bits about it bugged me, that's all. Fourth day, 4th of October, we watched the second Child's Play film, which was, again, I've heard that the films just get more and more comedically inclined as the series goes on and get more ridiculous. But I liked it. I liked the way it started out. We get kind of just the very remnants of the charred, burnt, again, spoilers, whatever, who cares, the burnt, charred remains of the original Chucky doll, and the company, the Good Guy Doll Company, is trying to put it back together to kind of see if there was anything worth investigating with the you know, the crazy story that had happened. And you know, they heard that, you know, this boy and the mother and, you know, people got killed and stuff, so they're checking it out, and basically Chucky's soul is still intact and he comes back again, basically. And Andy, the boy from the first film, same actor, goes into a foster home because his mother's been taken to psychiatric ward because she backs up the story about Chucky. I love that about the first film. Right at the very end, you got these two coppers, the mother and Andy, and they've all witnessed Chucky, and they're like, now do you believe me? And then the other copper's like, yeah, but who's going to believe me? Which basically means, you know, we've got this big thing here, murders, and what we're going to do, because no one's really going to believe us. And so I like that realistic thing of it, because in the second film that kind of goes out the window. There's a teacher who gets kind of murdered by Chucky, and it's just never mentioned again. Like, you know, this young boy's, Andy's teacher is murdered, and then days go by and nothing is said about it whatsoever. The school doesn't contact anyone. It's just like, that's just, okay, we'll kill her off and forget about it. It wasn't as, it didn't bring any realistic reactions to it, I think, as the first film did. But I still enjoyed the second film. It was decent. Andy's kind of helped along by this teenage girl called Kyle, for some reason. Strange name for a girl. I don't know what that was all about. Maybe it's an American thing. And she kind of sees Chucky, and they kind of join forces and, you know, try and stop him again. And I quite liked it. There was some good parts to it, and it wasn't like too much of a rehash, but you know, it wasn't anywhere near as good as the first film. I liked the end of the film where it's Andy and this girl Kyle. They're in the Good Guy doll factory, and there's just like thousands of boxes of Chuckies around everywhere, and you got the real Chucky chasing after them. He wants again to transfer his soul into Andy's body and, you know, become human again. And so they're running away from Chucky inside this doll, inside this doll factory, and then they're trying to kill him. And it's much like the first film where he keeps coming back, and it's just fun. It's just fun, creative stuff, and you know, again, not really scary, but enjoyable. and I hope would you be up for watching the third one?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I want to watch them all.
Yeah, I have heard that like Bride of Chucky and particularly Seed of Chucky get really ridiculous, but
yeah, but it's the 80s, it's okay.
no, I think those two are in the 90s.
Whatever.
Yeah, whatever.
90s
Anyway.
is the 80s.
But I do like to see every film in the series, you know, just to know. And at least I know that the last film to date was pretty good as well. So it's not like we're just going to get worse and worse and worse. Although we probably won't watch the last one again because we saw it quite recently. But we'll watch the ones we haven't seen anyway in the Chucky series. They're just fun films really. But I think the first one is probably going to always be the best one. I really did like that a lot. Not just because it was fun, because of the Chucky aspect. And then the 5th... No, I've skipped a few movies. I'm going to talk about very briefly. On the 2nd of October, when I went to bed, I watched 3 silent films. I watched The Manor of the Devil. It's kind of more commonly translated as The Haunted Castle. But I kind of translate the French myself, and it is more, to me, looking at the French and translating it, it's The Manor of the Devil. And it's like a 3-minute film, I think, or 2 minutes, and it's by the legendary Georges Méliès, who directed A Trip to the Moon and hundreds of other films. You know, again, he was a magician as well as a filmmaker, and he kind of, watching his films is like watching kind of a stage play, but with like really cool special effects you'd never be able to see in a stage play, because he used, his main go-to trick was filming something, turn the camera off, moving something, then turn the camera on again so it moves and it jumps, or it disappears, and he'll use puffs of smoke to kind of augment those effects. Manor of the Devil was released in 1896. You know, this is just an ancient film, and it's kind of technically the first horror film, but it's more of a comedy because it's just these 2 guys coming into this room in a manor, and there's a demon running around, the devil, and he's just making these ghosts appear and a skeleton, then he turns into a bat, and like all this stuff happens and everything's changing. It's really cool, really fun, and really interesting from a historical point of view of film as well. I really enjoyed it. And then I watched another Georges Méliès short from 1903, The Infernal Cauldron, which was actually shorter than Manor of the Devil. It was just, I think it was like just under 2 minutes. Really simple, one shot. It was just a cauldron, you know, and again, nice painted backgrounds. I really love the way they look in his films. And this one was tinted, it had colour tinting on the cauldron. And he's there, and he basically just kills 3 people, puts them in the cauldron, and they burn, and then they fly up, and these ghosts start flying up, and it was really cool special effects, and then they burst into flames and stuff, and just really cool exercise and special effects, and again, just a cool little watch. And then finally I watched the first Frankenstein film ever made from 1910. It was about 13 minutes long. I read it was 16 minutes long, maybe it's something to do with the frame rate, the version I watched, but it was about 13 minutes. And it really succinctly sums up the Frankenstein story. You know, I'm not even familiar with it that much, but the guy who goes off, he creates Frankenstein, and then, you know, Frankenstein causes problems at the end.
Hang on.
What?
I thought his name was Frankenstein and he creates a monster.
That's right, yeah. Frankenstein goes off, creates his monster. I did know that. And the best part of the film is definitely the creation of his monster, because he's got like this kind of room, and he shuts some doors, and he's got like a little hole that he looks through to see the progress, and he shuts it again, and it goes on a bit long where he keeps opening it and looking at it, but you see this weird kind of almost mannequin, this burning backwards and growing, and it's really cool and really atmospheric, and I think there's some like colour tinting as well going on. It was just really cool. The actual monster itself was, you know, okay, but I just love like even like the room in his home when he leaves home at the beginning, like it has like a bookshelf kind of painted onto the wall, you can tell, but it just looks cool. Like I love the imagination of the production design back in those days when film was really in its infancy. But again, I enjoyed it for what it was, and it was just, again, I love the monster birth scene. That was really cool. I wasn't expecting to go on this long actually, but there you go. Oh, I've got 0 minutes left on the tape. Okay, I'm gonna have to kind of stop this and cut tape. See, there you go. I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't be too hard on Cloverfield. Right, I'll stop recording and I'll come back. Okay, I'm back. And actually, I think that the only film left to talk about was yesterday, which was the 5th of October, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. This is where I'm going to kind of be a little bit cheeky, because again, if you follow me on, if you friend me on Facebook, you'll know that I watched it last night, and again had a lot of great feedback from everyone who gave their opinions on the film, because I really wanted to know what people thought about it, and I can appreciate everyone's opinion. But I'm not going to go into depth on this one because I'm going to talk about it on my podcast on Thursday. Again, this is just kind of a cheap ploy to get you to listen to that, but you can also look forward to Connie's thoughts on that. We kind of recorded a little thing last night because she really didn't like the film, and I thought it was a good contrast, because I really did like the film, but I had mixed feelings about it. I definitely don't think it's as good as everyone says. But then a lot of these horror classics, you know, none of them have great acting really, and it's more about the horror of it. And I was actually just listening to a video that James made a couple of days ago talking about horror films, and he was saying how like you can't, you know, horror films today, you can't make a film today like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. You know, you couldn't just remake that frame by frame and it be effective in today's world of movies. That's not what he said, but I'm saying it. But his point was, it's much like music from the 70s and the 80s. You can't go back and just do it all over again. It's a certain time, a certain feeling. It's the same with movies, and particularly with horror films, where back in the 70s, you'd sit down in 1974, watch Texas Chainsaw Massacre and be scared shitless because you haven't seen anything quite like that before. Whereas these days, everything is torture porn. You just see all this gory stuff and people get desensitized to it, and it's not going to have the same effect. And I agree with that, and I didn't really think about that after I watched Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but I think it is a really effective horror film because for me it just really creeped me out and was really just unsettling, unnerving, disturbing. It is a rough film, you know, it doesn't look that great, you know, it's directed well, but you know, it's just everything about it is just kind of just sweaty and just dirty and horrible, and I guess that's the point. And towards the end I really just did think it was really a really effective horror film. I guess I've already gone into my thoughts. I was trying to get everyone to listen to the podcast. I'll go in more depth on the podcast, but there you go, that was my thoughts I guess. I did really like it. Give it maybe a 4 out of 5 or 8 out of 10. Not in terms of being, you know, that great of a movie, but how much I enjoyed it for the horror aspect, which is, I guess, that's what it's there for, is to give you that reaction, that emotion. You know, again, comedies are there to make you laugh. You know, I rate the Wayne's World 10 out of 10. Is it a, you know, 10 out of 10 masterpiece, you know, perfectly constructed film and directed amazingly? No, but in terms of a comedy, what it's supposed to do, make you laugh, it's 10 out of 10 across the board for me. So it's again the same. You got to judge it by genre, I think, in certain cases, because you know there's lots of different films with different mixes of genres, but this one is a straight up horror, and yeah, I think it was very good, but not, you know, it didn't quite hit all the way out of the park for me. So there you go. That was my.
Can I add a little bit thing?
Yeah, very cool.
Whoever's gonna listen to the podcast and listen to my angry review of it.
Yeah.
I just want to say that I don't rate movies just because of my own opinion. I rate them for what I see and what I find artistic about it and the acting and everything. I sum it all up.
Okay.
Like with that Color Purple or whatever it's called.
The Color Purple, yeah.
I really didn't enjoy the movie. I was bored so bad, but I rated it like 9 out of 10 because it was a fantastically well done movie. It was great, the acting was great, and so on. So even if I hate a movie, doesn't mean that I will rate it like horribly.
Okay.
It was my, yeah, I just took it all in.
It's an interesting point because some people rate films and they're like, I only rate it in terms of how much I enjoy it, or I only rate it in terms of how good of a film I think it is. I'm kind of in the middle. Sometimes I'll do a bit of both. It depends on what the film is. Film by film basis, it always depends on how I judge it. Like Frankenstein 1910, I think on Letterboxd I rated that like 3.5 out of 5. It's not like, you know, it's just a 12-minute film that's really simple. There's not much to it, but just because of how old it is and because how you know, you got to judge it by.
Take everything
into account.
Consideration.
Yeah.
And that's what I did when I rated it.
Yeah.
The only reason why I even gave it any points whatsoever is because I thought about those things.
Yeah.
If it was purely if I enjoyed it or not, it would probably be a 1.
Okay.
Because it wasn't the worst thing.
Yeah. Well.
Just so you know.
Yeah.
I'm not being like a bitch.
I know. Yeah.
Not this time.
She's worried that what we recorded for the podcast, people are going to be offended by or pissed off by because she didn't love Texas Chainsaw Massacre. But I'm sure you will all be very forgiving to her opinion on it. And
it's not like I hate Star Wars.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, it would be bad. I would be right out the door. Okay, I'm going to end this video.
Bye.
End this video now. This is part 1 of Horror Month, and I guess part 2 will come probably next week or something like that. Where Connie's going away for like a week to London, then I'm going away and meeting up with her, and what?
I'm going to be in a week. I'm going to be in 5 days.
5 days. Well, that's still like a anyway. She's going to be in London 5 days. I'm going to then meet with her, and we're going to go back to my hometown. I'm going to visit my family for a week, so I don't know if it'll be like full-on horror throughout the whole month, but By the end of the month, there'll definitely be more stuff anyway. I'm not sure yet, but we'll see. It's been fun watching a horror film every day, at least, and just kind of, again, exploring new films. And again, I asked for suggestions on Facebook and got tons of them, and we have a list of about 125 films to watch, which is good because that means we're very picky in terms of deciding on a film we both want to watch. So with a list that long, it's a lot quicker for us to find one that we can agree on. So we're definitely not aiming to watch 120 films in 30 days, but you know, there's a lot that we want to watch, and so we can look at the list and pick. Alright, that's it. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video. Toodles. Toodles. What? Just because you added a little bit at the end doesn't mean you're part of the video. Yeah. You know, you don't even appear in the video. You're like that guy in Home Improvement. Just see his eyes. You don't even see your eyes. Just like you're like you could be like me pulling a voice off camera right now. Like you might not even be in the room. If you could pull a voice that sounds like me, I would probably leave you because that's creepy. Oh wow. Okay. Enough talk about leaving each other. Jesus. Right. Okay.
You started it.
I did start it. Right. This has gone far too rambling now. But yeah. Bye. Thanks for watching. See you next time.
He says he's really cool, but I think he's a tool. Even though I'm sure he's a quite nice guy, really. He's a quite nice guy, really.